Good evening and welcome to the BS and Beer Show. Tonight, BS stands for Building Science. I am your Brew Crew host tonight, Emily. Tonight, our topic is going to be finding and making skilled tradespeople in conjunction with Passive House Maine, who is doing their fall forum right now. So welcome, Naomi.
Thank you.
In the spirit of Kylie, I'm actually having a black cherry seltzer tonight. No judgment from the people in the audience. We want to say thank you to our media partners, Green Building Advisor, Fine Home Building, and tonight, Passive House Maine. And thank you to Kylie, who jumped off the screen for renaming us the Brew Crew, which sounds so much better than host. So welcome to the Brew Crew tonight, Kylie. Our agenda tonight is going to be an introductory from each of our guests that we have on, no presentations tonight, and then a discussion between our panelists and the audience on our topic, and we'll wrap things up promptly by 7:30. Tonight's video recording of the show is available on Green Building Advisor's BS and Beer blog and our YouTube channel, and all of our past shows can be found there as well. You can find the link at thebsandbeershow.com. And if you're not on our mailing list, as Mike mentioned before, go to thebsandbeershow.com to join our mailing list. And over to you, Mike.
Thank you. My name is Mike. Tonight I am drinking a Baxter Stowaway IPA, sort of my go-to relatively low-budget Maine. Few announcements. The Fine Home Building Summit is next week, October 26th to 29th. We'll put a link in the chat box, but the first 50 people to register for the summit, if you use the code BS plus beer, you'll get in free. So there's a lot of good content, and I'll be there as well, but don't let that hold you back. Another excellent conference. Tonight's show is in conjunction with the Passive House Maine Fall Forum. It's been going on every year for 10-ish years now, Naomi, so something like that, 8-ish.
It's 8, yeah.
So there's still one more day for that. There's some good content there, so we'll put a link to go sign up for that. Then one more conference next week is the IAQ Indoor Air Quality and Energy Forum, put on every year by the Maine Indoor Air Quality Council. There's always a lot of excellent content there, and it's virtual this year, just like the summit and the Passive House Maine Forum. If you want to attend that, use the code BS plus beer 2020. That will give you 10% off the registration fee. Let's see, and then we have our book club this quarter is Healthy Buildings, How Indoor Spaces Drive Performance. I haven't started it yet, but Emily and Kylie say it's pretty interesting. So I have to catch up there. Find your copy now. We'll be discussing that on December 17th, on our December 17th show. Hopefully we can get one or two of the authors involved. So we'll put links to all that in the chat box. Now for introductions. First, we have as a guest host, which means she gets a fancy background, we have Naomi Beal, who is the executive director and founding member of Passive House Maine and a founding board member of the North American Passive House Network. Naomi embraces the challenge of developing Passive House Maine into a sustainable organization through local, national, and international partnerships. She believes Maine's economic development can be fostered through a framework of building efficiency and innovative and traditional wood products. She lives in South Freeport, Maine. And on a personal note, I can say that BS and Beer owes part of our founding concept to the early iteration of Passive House Maine, which was primarily a club to drink and have meals where we talked a little bit about building performance. Now they do serious good work, and we've taken over the fun drinking and chatting portion of the discussion. So Naomi will be helping Emily and me with the not host duties, with the Brew Crew duties. For our special guests, first up, we have Kate Stevenson, who is a partner at Helm Construction Solutions based in Brattleboro, Vermont. Kate is an experienced leader in the fields of green building, professional education, sustainability, and business management. She works with established and emerging businesses and nonprofits to achieve triple bottom line metrics, develop business systems, and plan for a dynamic and resilient future. Has deep experience in post-secondary education and led the Yes Tomorrow Design Build School for over 13 years. And if you've been a BSMB regular, you might not recognize Kate because she usually tunes in from her hammock. But I think it's a little too cold for hammock viewing today. Bob Kovacs is a senior pre-construction executive with Gilbane Building Company in Atlanta. He has worked on everything from $5,000 bathroom, $4 billion airport expansions. He currently oversees the pre-construction activities for a $300 million division of a $6 billion commercial construction firm. Bob is involved in addressing the skilled trade shortage through teaching residential and commercial construction courses at a local Teamworks competition for Skills USA at the state and national levels, and serving on the advisory board for a construction program at his local high school. He's written numerous articles for the Journal of Light Construction, moderated their online estimating forum, and presented at JLC Live. He has been a lead AP since 2000. I happen to know that Bob has a side gig as a metalworking artisan. And in digital age fashion, I've known all these guests for a while. I've known Bob the longest, going on 20 years, but he's the only one I've never met in person, strictly a virtual online friendship. Last but not least, we have Heather Thompson. She received a Bachelor's of Arts in Sculpture from UC Santa Cruz and started out building custom furniture, publishing an art gallery. In 2001, Heather moved to Peaks Island off the coast of Maine and started a residential construction company called Thompson Johnson Woodworks. Since then, she has doubled the size of the company, now featuring 10 remarkably funny, smart, highly skilled, and conscientious people. And I have to ask Heather, did your employee Mark Pollard write that part for you, or was that those actually your words?
That would have been 9 if it was my words.
9, okay, got it. Thompson Johnson has expanded their service area from Peaks to Greer. Heather and everyone at Thompson Johnson Woodworks is committed to high performance building through the best building carbon sequestering practices. And I would encourage everyone to check out their Instagram page, Thompson Johnson Woodworks. They have lots of great hands-on solid building science content. I know that was a lot of introductions. And I meant to pause in between to ask each of you if you have anything to add and any featured beverages. So just quickly, Naomi, did I miss anything? And do you have a beverage tonight?
No, that sounds fine. I do have a water bottle, local South Freeport water, which is awesome.
Excellent. Kate, how about you? Did I miss anything? And do you have a beverage?
I got Hefeweizen from Queen City Brewery in Burlington, Vermont.
Excellent. How about you, Bob? Bob might be frozen. Let's move on to Heather, and maybe Bob will unfreeze.
Diet Coke for me tonight, Mike. I've got a presentation.
Yeah. I'm drinking Sebago Lake.
Yeah,
Right
me too.
Excellent. Oh, and Bob's back.
Oh, I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Diet Coke tonight, Mike. I've got a presentation tomorrow at 2:00 for a $200 million net zero corporate campus. So I got to stay sober tonight.
Wow.
No big deal.
Just
everyday occurrence.
Mike and Kate holding down the fort tonight.
It's BS and beer, people. Beer. No, that's okay.
I know.
No pressure. No pressure.
You can switch it up to BS and bottle.
BS and bottle. Yeah, we thought about that. BS and brews. We have a BS and barbecue coming up with some special guests from Texas. Yeah, and we're going to argue about who has the best barbecue. That's different.
I was going to say, we are not discriminatory on our beverages or B things. BS and bourbon, I've definitely had that.
Exactly. And that is it for introductions. I'll turn it back to Emily to kick off the discussion.
All right, great. So tonight we invited everybody here to talk a little bit more about this idea of finding and making skilled tradespeople or training the trades, and really as a call to action as part of what Passive House Maine is doing with their conference this year. So we're excited to have all of you joining us in conjunction with the forum. And so we asked everybody to take just 5 minutes and tell us a little bit more about your experience and your position in the field with relationship to, getting more people into the trades or helping to fill the current labor shortage, people work, et cetera. And the overarching goal, which BS and Beer kind of always follows, which is, considering mitigating climate change through what we're doing. So since Passive House Maine is our partner here tonight, I'm going to ask Naomi to say a few words first.
Oh, thank you so much, Emily and Mike. Thank you for collaborating and bringing Passive House Maine on right in the middle of our forum. It's just a really great supplement to our other sessions that take place today and tomorrow. And I'm so happy to be talking about this topic. As Kate has mentioned, we talk about it a lot, and the state of Maine, I know, is talking a lot about required training for all types of work in the built environment, including all the trades, code inspections, every single level. Passive House Maine has tried to do trainings and Passive House level builder and designer trainings, and we have mixed success. They tend to be pretty expensive. Trainers are from away. It becomes complicated and expensive. But we still would really, best case scenario, have very skilled workers in the state so that all of the expense that's wrapped up in labor could be eased a little bit. The shortage of workers that we have is dramatic, and consequently, our costs are skyrocketing. Our conference this year, we have 3 tracks: retrofit, zero carbon, and students and youth. And the thought and the theme was to highlight the young people coming up into the world and to feature both professional, upper level education, architects and engineers, but also the trades as a viable, philosophically solid and financially rewarding career. And just to make it clear that our built environment needs a huge ton of help, that and regarding climate specifically, a young person who dedicates their life to making a better built environment is on firm ground in combating climate change, and also can make a reasonable living, and we really want to feature that. Additionally, we're so happy to have those students present their own research. We have a series of 4 students from University of Maine Architecture presenting their own research, and our summer intern, Elliot Wilson, who's been awesome, is also presenting the work that he did for Passive House Maine at on-site in Millinocket. So that happens tomorrow. Thanks.
Thanks, Naomi, for giving us a highlight of that, of what you're doing at Passive House Maine, and they still have another day. So I think they've got a couple more presentations to go through if you haven't joined in yet. Go down the list in the order we put it in. So Kate, if you want to give us a few words, your thoughts, what you've been up to.
Sure. So I think, I come to this topic of training with a few different hats on. As Mike said in the intro, I spent about 13 years working at the Estomaro Design Build School, which is training both homeowners and professionals in design and construction, hands-on techniques. And then started my own business about 5 years ago, Helm Construction Solutions, and I get to work with lots of different, mostly contractors and some architects all around the country, mostly focused here in the Northeast in New England. And I'm working with them on hiring, business development, all kinds of different things. And then I've also had the opportunity to work with a couple different organizations that are specifically developing curriculum and training. One is a new nonprofit called the Studio for High Performance Design and Construction down in Newton, Mass. It's started to offer some trades training programs. And I'm also on the board of NESI, the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association, which offers different kinds of training and conferences. So, when we started talking about this topic, I think of kind of three different buckets. One is, how do we get young people excited about construction and design, and get them early and convince them that this is a great career. One is taking our existing building trades and contractors and really training them up in building science. So that's like a whole topic. And then the third one is, how do we bring more people into the trades, maybe from other careers? So maybe you don't catch them right out of high school or college, but convincing folks that it's worth transitioning, and how do we do that kind of adult level education? There's a huge gap there. So, each of those buckets, I think, has different strategies. And what I'd like to encourage us all tonight is to think about, kind of challenge, like, what are the things that we can do in our own businesses, in the work that we're doing? Sometimes these conversations are like, oh, well, someone, the community colleges should do this, and like someone should create a training program. And, yes, that's really important. But I think, to get to the more immediate, we need to think about how can we create opportunities within the companies that we're in now, on a more immediate basis. And for me, that's talking about how are we providing like solid living wage jobs with good benefits that are attractive in the hiring marketplace. It's how do we mentor both within our organizations and train people, hire people at an apprentice level and be able to train them up and not expect that we can just go out and find experienced lead carpenters all the time. Create the workforce that we need in-house. And then for the younger folks, how do we show up in schools? How do we go to career fairs and convince folks that this is a great career? A lot of my focus has also been around gender equity in the trades, and how do we get more women and trans and gender nonconforming folks in the workforce? There are lots of different aspects to diversifying the construction industry, but we know that more than 90% of folks in construction identify as men. And so there's a huge opportunity there, but it doesn't just end with, making the hire. Like, the other thing that we've learned is we've created lots of programs to train women in carpentry and the trades, and often they don't stick with it because the companies that they're hired into are not welcoming, and they face a lot of barriers once assuming that they can even land a job. So we can talk about that more, but that's kind of one of the areas that I've been focusing on a lot, is working with some different organizations like Vermont Works for Women. I know there's someone here tonight from that program, and just trying to think about, as we go into hiring, and maybe Heather, you can speak to this too, but how do we broaden the pool of folks that we might be recruiting into our companies? So I'll stop there and then see where we go with the conversation.
You proposed a lot of great topics, so hopefully we'll get back to some of those discussion points. Thank you, Kate. Heather, how about we go to you first, and then we'll see if Bob pops back on.
So I've been running this company in some form for the past 15 or 20 years, but most recently I bought it 8 years ago, and I've been running it since then. My focus in terms of hiring is trying to hire smart, capable people who where I'm trying to create a company culture that is positive, kind, excellent place to work with great benefits. Recently made a commitment to trying to hire people who aren't just men, and there are many men on the crew and they're great, but I've made a decision that we really need to broaden the people that we have in the company, because we want to have a diverse company. Diverse companies are more successful. So I'm trying to have good benefits, have a positive company culture. We hire a lot of young people. We do have 3, my phone keeps going off, 3 trainee carpenters right now. We're committed to trying to train people as well.
You are unfrozen, Bob. So
right. Okay.
Go
right,
for
so
it.
What I wanted to touch on, honestly, is with regard to the high school programs. I know when I first started talking to the folks here locally about 10 years ago, the excuse I got for why there weren't a whole lot of construction trade programs was, well, we've got all of these state requirements that say, every student has to have, X number of years of math and so many years of science and so on. There's just not enough room for, trading, for hands-on type stuff. And I think it was partly that, because there definitely are a lot of requirements, but I think it was also that a lot of the parents were still under my kid's going to college, he's not going to go be a carpenter, he's not going to be a welder or whatever. And I don't know what exactly caused the shift, but probably about 3 years ago, it seemed like I had more people contacting me who said, hey, my kid doesn't really want to go to college, or they went for a year of college and it's just not for them. And what should they do? And at the time I was recommending that people go to welding school, because in 14 weeks you can get trained to go out and make a good living. But at the same time, the high schools here have started opening up training programs. So there's now a construction trades program at one of the high schools. There's an agriculture mechanics program at one of the other schools, which is a combination of a little bit of mechanics, a little bit of welding, a little bit of fabrication, to just try to get folks to be able to do hands-on stuff around the farm, because we're in a quasi-rural area. So it's starting to take shape. But one thing that they need is the industry professionals like us to go in and support them in the classrooms. I'm on the advisory board at the school that has that construction trades program, and the instructor that is teaching the class, they're using the NCCER training program, which is nationally accredited. So he's got that book, but he was the wrestling coach and a gym teacher, and now he's training kids in carpentry. So it's he needs help, and a lot of the local folks have come in and go and just spend a day. I mean, I've gone in a couple of times and just helped them, with projects. There's a couple other contractors who've gone in and done that. So my suggestion, as far as how to help get more people into the trades, is to help them be successful when they do get into those programs. So anything you can do, reach out to your local high school or community college and find out what you can do to help them, whether it's materials or tools, or just going in and spending time with them to help and to provide that information. And it would be a perfect opportunity for us to go in and introduce them to building science too, because they that NCCER program is all about just hands-on safety, rigging, cutting and safe handling of materials, things like that. It is not theory at all. So it would be good for us to get in there and teach them why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a great thought. There's some great trade school programs up here. I know I did one. We did a community program where the school built a house, and it slowed down for a while because they had difficulty with transportation, because they weren't allowed to transport them to the site, and you can only build things that are so big in the schoolyard and stuff. And so there was some issues with transportation and stuff. And but I did a podcast several weeks ago with Trayvon, who is actually an architect, and he said, somebody came into their school and was like, "Hey, I'm an architect and this is what I do," and like they didn't even know that these things. So I think there's it's great for us to definitely get involved in these programs for sure, as the professionals, but also to just go into the schools and maybe open up the possibilities to, maybe go into math class or science class and talk building science, or talk some of those other things to, because I did another podcast with 2 women who are actually in construction here in Maine, and they went to college and then decided that they weren't going to do what they went to college for, and they wanted to get into the building industry, but they didn't really know where to start. So, Kate, I know you had said a little bit of this in your email back about, posting jobs online and stuff. So like, I don't know if we want to go down that route or down that avenue and talk a little bit more about like, how do we make people think that the trades are cool? Because we all obviously feel like it's cool. So like, how do we make it to both high school students and then, college age kids who get a degree and then don't want to work in the field they got a degree in?
Well, maybe I'll start there because I think, again, I think these are slightly different, but
Sure.
Just to talk about sort of, people who are coming at it maybe not straight from a high school situation, didn't get into trade school in high school, but they've got a liberal arts philosophy degree and they're trying to figure out, how to find a job and are interested in getting into construction. I think, there are a few options. One, and I'll post some of these in the chat, but, there are a few adult education kind of certificate programs. Sion in Southern Vermont offers one that's called a High Performance Builder Certificate. And it's really for people who already have some carpentry experience, but they want to learn about high performance. One of the things that I did in the time that I was at Yestermorrow was developing some different certificate programs, one in sustainable building and design, one in natural building, a semester credit bearing program for college students. But, those are, Yestermorrow typically has offered very short courses for adults. And what we were trying to do is offer, a 10 or 12 week curriculum where you could actually get a little more hands-on experience. It's still not the same as having 3 or 4 years of, daily apprentice level carpentry on a job site, but at least, kind of familiarity with tools and different building types. So, I think that is one when, I get a lot of questions from that type of person, out of college, but how do I break into the trades, and one way is just, try and go get an entry level job, but sometimes getting some kind of credential or certificate might be the thing that would at least like get your resume noticed by someone, and be the difference between some college kid who just wants to be a timber framer and some college kid who took a 2-week course at Heartwood building craft school, like at least that gives you like a little bit of a leg up potentially.
So that talks about it from the training perspective. Heather or Bob, I don't know if you have something from the perspective of the hiring and the contractor perspective is, what are you guys doing in your companies or thought processes for people who are coming in at entry level positions who maybe are afraid to approach you guys because they're like, well, I don't have any experience, so no one will hire me.
In the company I'm with, we don't hire a whole lot of folks directly. We hire subcontractors who have the challenge that we're talking about of finding people. And I know that a lot of them, what they've started doing the bigger companies are starting actual training programs in-house. There's a couple contractors here, there's a couple drywall contractors and an electrical contractor, as well as a plumber that I know, who've actually started their own programs and said, look, we will bring you in. We will put you, we'll have you work in the mornings and come to the training center in the afternoon and actually teach you what you need to know. And it's about depending on the program, it's anywhere from 8 to 20 weeks. And at the end of that program, they are, they're trained in that trade, at least, beyond where they were, obviously, when they started. The challenge that the first couple programs had was, that they were very hesitant about starting the program because they said, well, we're going to train these guys and then they're going to up and leave and go to work for somebody else for another $1 an hour. And I think, that's a very legitimate concern, but it's, if you're not doing it, you're not going to take the chance. Yes, some of them are going to leave, but what if 1 or 2 of them stay? I mean, you got to have a couple of them that hang around. They're not all going to bail on you if you're doing things right. And if you're not doing it, who is? Everybody's waiting for somebody else to solve this problem for them, and that's not going to happen. So,
Heather, anything to add to that? I know you're a smaller company, so in small companies where you couldn't set up your own training program, or maybe you do your own version of it.
Right. I mean, we don't have a formal training program, but we have realized that we do need to be committed to training people because there isn't a workforce we can just choose from. I think we're lucky right now that people are realizing with the cost of college being so expensive and it being super groovy to be like a maker, there's a lot more interest in this and there's a lot more acceptance of being a carpenter. It's, it's something that a lot of people want to make something with their hands, and some people are just driven, they have to make things. So I think we're lucky that our culture is coming around to that. It's too bad that it's the cost of college that drives that to some extent, but that's great. But I think by letting go of the idea that the cost to build something and the cost of labor should be low to make it affordable for people. People have to understand that like a highly trained carpenter is an expert. There needs to be a broader acceptance of what it costs to build a house if you hire a company who's paying a living wage or better to its employees. It's something that we have to understand as a culture.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, because I think Naomi kind of what part of the show was mentioning, like, that if we could get more people into the trades, it would make housing more affordable. And I'm not sure that that's the case.
As soon as I was saying that, I was thinking the same. And the other side of that, not just that it becomes more affordable, but it becomes more the crunch, the time and the premium that's put on with that crunch could be eased a little bit, I think. But I totally agree. Of course, a trained professional craftsperson absolutely should be compensated with a reasonable living wage. And actually what Heather, I was going to respond to, it is that maybe the trend is gaining because of the extraordinary expensive college, but also it's because you can earn a living.
Right.
We have to make sure people can earn a living. One of the things I see a lot is, I want to hire a new a carpenter, and I'm going to pay him $10 an hour, and I'm going to 1099 him, and so he's got no benefits, he's got no insurance, he's not even paying into Social Security, and oh, by the way, bring all your own tools and all that. So you can't. That's not a very attractive situation when the guy can go to work at Home Depot for $12 an hour and work in the air conditioning. So we have to, as an industry, pay these folks. I'm not even going to say a living wage, because we should be paying them above a living wage by quite a bit if they're skilled labor.
Yeah, that's actually something I think that comes up a lot too. Is I don't know at what point, and maybe I'm totally wrong about this perception, but building used to be really craftsmanship, and you paid for this craftsmanship, and we lost that a little bit. And it's almost like we didn't raise the wage with the value. I mean, you pay a lot for craftsmanship. You understand you pay a lot for craftsmanship. So if the whole industry bottom came up, it might mean that we do a little bit less building, which would be perfectly okay for our environment. Which is a probably very unpopular opinion, but it would give living wages to the people, especially because, you can go into, we're talking about all the trades, but you can go into plumbing and electrical, have a license, Maine doesn't have licensed contractors. So you can go into plumbing and electrical, have a license, get paid better living wage, this licensure. And so like, how do we bring carpentry up to that level as well too? I don't know.
I mean, I think, this gets into some of what, my interest in sort of like hiring strategies. But, part of elevating the construction industry is like making it clear that, yes, these are good paying jobs. And so, I think what I see often in our world is, the default way of hiring is sort of, somebody who knows somebody. I've got someone on my crew and his brother, is looking for a job. It's like the old boy network. And, the downside of the old boy network is that you're not reaching, people that you don't know already. And so by, some of the strategies are like, posting your jobs publicly. I can't tell you like out of all the companies that I work with, more than half of them are like, no, we don't really want to, we never post any jobs. We just kind of only want people who kind of know that we know already. And, you have to put it out there. And if you put it out there and say, we're hiring and, the wage range is between $23 and $28 an hour, whatever it is, and here are the benefits that we offer, you're both kind of, you then have the potential to attract folks in that career switching situation, that are looking for something different than what they're doing now. But and you're opening it up to just a more diverse pool of applicants. So, those are some of the things that I think are really important if we're going to bring more people in. You have to kind of elevate the fact that these jobs exist.
Yeah, something that can't.
And I would think that right now, there should be plenty of people out there looking or available to come into this if we can make it attractive. I mean, think of not only just the short term, due to the COVID stuff of, the restaurant workers and such that are out of work who may have a job to go back to, when things start opening up again. But think about people like bank tellers. I was reading something the other day. I mean, how many of us have started doing online banking? I haven't visited a bank in 9 months, and because my daughter showed me how to deposit checks, by taking a picture of them. I have no intention of going back to the bank. So what are these bank tellers going to do? Not that they're all necessarily going to jump into construction, but there may be some that could. So there should be no shortage of people to attract if we have something to attract them with.
Yeah. And then send them all out to read Healthy Buildings and how we spend like 95% of our time indoors, and then they'll want to all be outside. So they'll all want to work in outside jobs. Sorry, but it did bring up another thing that came up. I'm not sure if it was in the chat box or just a question that Mike posted, but, is the hiring process part of the reason why we have, a 90% male dominated market, or is there something else that's sort of pushing that? Is it sort of, who and so sort of similar people, or I feel like back in the day it used to be like my father was a builder, so I was a builder, but maybe it's not that. Is that part of why we have the lack in diversity, just because of the way we're trying to hire? No answers on that one. Theoretical question.
I think so.
Shut it down.
I hate to say it, but the construction industry is often sort of 10, 20, 30 years sort of behind some of the trends in other industries. And I think hiring strategies is one of them. You think about the tech industry or, I don't know, even manufacturing, like they're much more proactively trying to build a workforce than I would say the construction industry is as a whole.
And maybe that's simply because, as you can tell here with the lack of skilled labor, we haven't been doing very good at building our workforce. Not just behind the times, right?
I think that, the bigger firms, I think, are doing a better job of it because they're being more proactive about it. I mean, a company like Gilbane probably has a dozen people that their titles are diversity and inclusion managers. And that's their goal, is to increase our diversity, whether that be gender or race or sexual orientation, whatever. That's their job, to make sure we're balanced and we're reflecting what's out there in the communities that we're working with. But we're also doing it with subcontractors. We're running training programs that you can only get involved in if you're a disadvantaged or minority-owned business, to help them get a leg up. I think nationally we are 35 or 40% women in our offices. I know, I've got 4 estimators that work for me, and 3 of them are women. So I think I'm above the average. It's partly one of the reasons I have to drink when I do drink. But we are above the average in our group.
It's also really important to make sure that when people are hired, they're not overlooked once they've been hired because of what they look like. We just hired a woman, and she's starting next week, so we don't know what she's like, but she was she joined the union in Massachusetts because she wanted to learn how to be a carpenter. She wanted to learn carpentry. She took classes. She did all this stuff. She was part of the union, and no one called her. She never got a job. It's insane. She jump through all these hurdles, is actively trying to make this happen for herself, and she's accepted into the union. No one calls. Why? I mean, why wouldn't you want to hire someone who is so single-minded about learning this trade, this industry? It's hard to get out of your comfort zone, but if we're going to increase the diversity of our industry, it's what people need to start doing.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked as a carpenter and then project manager, I probably worked with somewhere between 100 and 200 carpenters, and I think 0 were women, maybe 1 woman. Then when I started my own company and hired a woman, but it was just I think it's probably intimidating for Missy Macklin in the chat says helpful hint, hire 2 women at a time so they're not the only ones. So especially on smaller companies, like some women or other people not well represented in the construction trades. I might be frozen. No. May not be comfortable, or employers may be leery of hiring somebody who's different in some way, but not what are some ways I'm getting to the point. What are some ways employers could make it more attractive for non-typical employees to apply, other than hire them if they apply?
Well, I think, one note that's kind of related to what you're talking about, Mike, is another trend that I think has been shown in some of the research around gender equity in the trades is, this is a little bit stereotypical, but women in general tend to underplay their skill set and are, conservative in putting out how much experience they have and how much they know, whereas men tend to overestimate their level of experience. And so I think that that's something that's really important to keep in mind when you're interviewing candidates, that there's kind of this baked in level of bias. And, and some of that comes from our families and how we're raised. And, boys have a higher, tend to be, kind of given more opportunities to work with their dad and do carpentry projects. And, these things are changing. And I think that's really exciting, but we also have to recognize that there's many hundreds of years of history that have perpetuated that trend. And so just thinking about that, because I know, even Heather and I have been working on, looking at carpentry candidates, and it, we're lucky enough to have a number of women applying for these positions, but, I do think it's interesting to step back and see, okay, yeah, how do is it really apples to apples? Because they may not be, it brings up a question of, also how do we kind of test people or really assess their skill level?
Right. It's impossible to know what someone's skill is until you've hired them and you've worked with them for a couple weeks. Every time, not recently, but previously, every time a woman would apply for a job, she would say, I really want to learn carpentry. Do you have any internships? I'm willing to work for almost nothing or for free. And every time an inexperienced man would apply, he would have been, in carpentry his whole life, working with his dad, presenting themselves as a highly skilled, capable carpenter. And they probably felt that way, but it blew my mind that there was such a discrepancy in the way the 2 people with the same experience were presenting themselves. It's crazy.
A related question from the chat box, let me find it, was about unions. Josh Menard said unions basically make promises to kids, but don't follow up. So not us doing residential have to do with unions, but so since a lot of the industry, but Bob, you probably work with unions or not?
Down here, it's a right to work state, so there are unions here. but they, I mean, we could have a project where we got a union electrician working next to an open shop plumbing contractor. There's not the issues that you have in the Northeast where, if the job's either for the most part union or it's not. But having worked in the Northeast in the past and dealt with the unions, the one good thing about them is they do have the training programs. Right now, I know a lot of them are having issues with keeping those programs full. It used to be there was a waiting list to get into the unions, and it was more of a, my brother's in the union, he got me in type of thing. Down here, they're starving for people as much as the open shop guys are. So I don't know why they would be making promises and then not following up, because they need people as much as the non-union companies do.
I mean, I know a couple women who have gone through the union apprenticeship programs, and it's in some ways it's a whole different world, because the jobs that they are going into are, this building casinos and hospitals. It's large scale commercial construction, of which there is in Boston, and not as much in Vermont. There's very little union carpentry in Vermont, but if you want to build houses, it's kind of in some ways a whole different skill set, I think.
Spencer Day has a good point that people a clear advancement path and levels articulated at the beginning helps retention a lot. I think especially in the residential world, a lot of us sort of fell into this whole field in the first place. We didn't go through any proper training. We sort of figured it out as we went along. So we don't even have the model for how do you go through a more regimented path. So maybe we need business owner training to train us how to hire and keep workers.
You might have actually touched on something really important there, which is, my experience as an architect that builds homes is that a lot of home contractors don't have as much time. Usually the guy who's the foreman, it might also be the owner. That how does the website work? How do you call in? Let alone job descriptions and that kind of stuff. And so when I had two women who were looking for jobs in the state of Maine, they couldn't figure out who would even consider hiring a woman, let alone a job description once you got there, and then support once you were on the job site as the person for who you are. So I think communication in our industry is I would say just a smidge lacking.
I think there's a lot of different levels of companies, and Kate probably sees it a lot more with the companies she deals with. But I know, like Doug Horgan's on the call here, and he works for BOA. They have all those processes. They
Absolutely.
have the job descriptions, and you're going to spend so much time at this level, and you're going to get evaluated, and you can move up to the next level, and so on. Like you said, Emily, but a lot of the people in this industry are one-man shows or one-woman shows, and so they're looking to hire someone, and may not have the time or the ability to even train them well, let alone have a written job description or here's your career path that you're going to follow. They're just hoping to have somebody who shows up for work every morning.
I put a link in the chat, but one of the tools that we put together was this toolkit for small business owners, and really, because that's who we work with. We work with contractors and residential construction. The largest companies might have 20 or 25 people, but with that kind of idea in mind, like you don't have a whole HR department to manage your diversity and inclusion initiative. What can you do on a small scale? So I'll throw it up there again, but encourage folks to check that out. And it's just about 20 pages of kind of quick, short tips that you can do as a business owner.
Thank you, Kate. To try to tie this back to building science and passive house and other high performance stuff, we can or avoid the beer part of the discussion for now, but just the industry from my perspective has changed. I started working in the trade summers in high school in the 80s, and my job was to carry plywood. There were no like they hadn't drywall lifts weren't on job sites yet. Like my first construction job was holding up 16-foot sheets of 5/8 drywall while somebody else tried to screw it in, and I was not prepared for how they have lifts and all. Anyway, the point is, the industry has changed. Now we have high performance, things are more complicated. We have a lot of automation. It's a different field from what it was 10 and 20 and 30 years ago. How does that affect who might want that to our advantage? Are we using it to our advantage to find the good workers, or to convince people to join the trades, that it's not as physically taxing necessarily as it used to be? There are still physically taxing aspects for sure, but having a law lift a bunk of plywood onto a roof is a heck of a lot easier than carrying it up a ladder, believe me.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it, and the whole building science aspect means that there's more, brain power. It's more challenging, and it's not to say that construction wasn't challenging 50 years ago. It certainly was, but I think like what attracts an 18-year-old into this thing, instead of learning coding, why would they come into construction? It's the satisfaction of seeing what you're doing with your hands every day, and that's huge. But it's also, I think, this idea that, it's science. It's not just manual labor all the time.
Mike, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier too, about making sure that folks are well compensated and have benefits and a career path and all. I was thinking about this earlier. It's like, think about the guy who works for an insulation company, and he's paid 15 cents a square foot for installing insulation. You're going to be lucky to get him to put the insulation in the wall correctly, let alone think about why he's doing it and why he's using open cell foam versus closed cell foam and that kind of stuff, because he has no motivation to think about that stuff. All he's thinking is, how many square feet of insulation can I put in today to increase my paycheck? So we got to take that and move it to a different level where that guy can actually think about why he's doing what he's doing, to make sure he's doing the best job he can.
Can I just interject another theme that we just briefly touched on, and that was the idea of more building maybe being a better thing for the climate. But I just want to give a shout out to retrofits, and by extension, the 50 Houses Initiative at Passive House Maine. But we have a daunting challenge to renovate and retrofit the buildings that already exist across the country and in Maine to a standard that makes them reasonable in terms of carbon emissions, energy used to heat or cool, and arguably there's specific skills that could be honed for retrofit specific companies, and that's doing that insulation project with a mission, and maybe there's room to really understand what that retrofit's all about.
I think to talk about retrofits too, we really have to talk about building science. So that was a great way to bring that back, is, to get people interested in the science. It's not just about building, but science is critically important in retrofits too, because you're not starting from the beginning. So you're working with something, and depending on the level of access that you have to the existing structure, you could be making a bigger issue than you had before. And so it's really important that we train the people who are in the field, in that insulation contractor. Like you said, that's one of the most important, this is one of my hot buttons. That's one of the most important things in a structure. Why is that guy getting paid the least amount of money? That is a problem. That's a problem in our industry. And so, when we talk about retrofits and science, is that a way to get, we have bigger companies, Gilbane is a much bigger company. We have smaller companies, we're house building, there are so many, I talk about this with architecture too, when you say you're an architect, you have to specify what kind of architect you are, because if you're good at building houses or designing houses, you're probably not good at designing hospitals. And so there's so many interest levels then in the trades as well. So, this building science aspect of retrofits could be a way that we get people who are interested in science interested in building. And retrofits are always more expensive, unfortunately. So we pay people more money because it's more expensive. Heather, wasn't it one of your projects that you thought was one thing and you took it apart and somebody had done, I thought it was on Instagram, a project you did recently, where when you opened it up, there was a whole bunch of other things going on.
Well, that's every project we do, but we did recently open up a wall and found I think it was a pie tin that was stuck in the wall to either as flashing or as mouse proofing. But, you know, we work with old cottages.
That's Yankee ingenuity, Heather.
Exactly. Air sealing with pie tins.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Bergen has a good point in the post. It was posted just to panelists, so not everybody can read it. Oh, I forgot to mention this. This is also, I think this is going to be the BS and Beer that Fine Home Building is also releasing as a podcast. So people will be listening, and this is a good one to release as a podcast because it's not visually centered. Some of them will be more visual. People will lose out. In any case, nobody watching the replay gets to see the chat box, so we try to read them out loud. Michael Bergen says a real problem is that our business is feast or famine. I mean, we've been on a pretty good run here of things being good, like they were sort of pre-2008. At some point, they're going to slow down, or even when things are good, it's very common. Just if there's no work, then you get laid off for a week. If you work in an office, you don't just get laid off for a week. Like they figure out things to do. So is there a structural problem in the industry, or is that, is that a problem that we don't have consistent employment? You're either asked to work, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, or you're asked to go home for a couple of weeks while they drum up some work.
Right. And that's the problem of our industry, where there's so many just small businesses. There's so much to do when you're running a business. If you have to do the work, talk to the customer, do the estimates, get the permit drawings, whatever. It's just so much to handle that keeping a consistent line of work all lined up for people it's hard, right? It's hard to stay on top of everything when you're one or two people.
I mean, in my vision, and if we're doing 10,000 retrofits a year, I mean, I do think that the retrofit market has potential in the next 30 years, as we're trying to attain those 2050 carbon goals, has potential to be a real, consistent market.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal, and I'm hoping that's what's happening in the legislature. I mean, there is a movement for Maine's Climate Corps. I don't know how that looks in other states, but a vision of basically young people doing climate mitigation-based projects, whether they're in our, in renewables or built environment. But I'm optimistic in an idealistic way that retrofits actually really can be a consistent market leading to predictability and maybe more a clear path to job improvement, or with that path of professional path that's beginner to expert, lower paid, higher paid, in a consistent way, even for the smaller folks.
There's going to need to be a commitment from our state government and our national government to subsidize training and
right.
any large scale programs like that for them really to take off.
Right. I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
Cautiously, or maybe I just wish. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that I did want to bring up at some point is this whole idea of the Green New Deal is to create a way for us to train folks in weatherization and energy efficiency careers, and it may feel far away, or some of us might be more optimistic that it could actually happen, but I do wonder what what would be our dream scenario, because I can imagine a world where there is like this big influx of cash to, train hundreds of thousands of people. And how do we do that? What would that even look like? And so as an industry, what, how would we, if there were funds available, what would we even do with it?
Yeah, I'm going to mention one more time about book club because I see Matt came up, so I'm assuming he's going to give us some great tips on his program. But is this Healthy Building book that I'm reading too, is once we start realizing the impact that our buildings have on our health, maybe we can get that higher level, from our government, whatever, for the influx of cash to really start looking at that. Like once we tie it to capital and people who own these buildings realizing that, their return on investment for building healthy buildings, retrofitting healthy buildings is going to be huge. But also that, we spend a ton of money on healthcare. We talk about healthcare a lot in our government is, if we spend, we used to use the term 90% of our time indoors, but that means you have to spend at least 3 hours outside. And with COVID right now, I doubt that a lot of people are spending at least 3 hours outside. So it's more like 99% of our time indoors. And so when we start, I think, looking at how our buildings have a direct relationship on our health, then maybe we can get that higher level investment in the trades, possibly. But maybe that's wishful thinking, but I could see how that correlation might drive some funding.
No, and I just
Totally, Emily.
Yeah. I invited Matt who teaches a vocational program and is our friend of the show. I'd say he's been on before to just say a little bit about his approach, since he's actually there, boots on the ground, training kids oriented trades. So he's doing it right. So Matt, what are your secrets, or what could everybody be doing better?
Hey, thanks guys. This is definitely one I didn't want to wait to the recording to listen to and watch or whatever. So I definitely made sure I could jump on. For obviously Emily and Mike know this, and a handful of people on here. I teach a building trades program here in Taylorville, Illinois. We have had this program since the 60s, where the kids actually come and build a house from the ground up. And it was on pause when Illinois had some budget issues a few years ago, but we relaunched it last year. And one of my big focuses was to bring energy efficiency and stuff into this building science, and where I had to become a student and learn very quickly. So BS and Beer has been a huge help. Emily, I was actually on the podcast with Emily, me, and one of my students who was a female. She did a nice little podcast with them with Sydney last year. So you guys can go check out her stuff on that. So big thing for us was, you guys, I mean, you've hit on everything. The goal for the program was to kind of, in our area, especially Midwest, Travis has talked about this many times on here and on other podcasts. Midwest, we're kind of late to the show when it comes to energy efficiency and things like that. Where up north, especially Northeast, like you guys, it's kind of the thing to do. Here, it's not so much. So what I wanted to do was kind of show that in our area that we could do this, we could do it affordably. We didn't have to do anything special. We didn't have to learn the kids didn't have to learn any special techniques. So with the help of people like Jake Bruton, Steve Basic, guys who have mastered, the control layers and set, for the building envelope, they were huge in helping me out with this, doing it simply using simple materials that were easy to get, like zip panel and things like that. We're probably the first house to put exterior insulation on a house that didn't do it just to fan out old farmhouse to get it level for vinyl siding. Same with, rain screen, things like that. So the kids were learning why we did the thermal or the insulation on the outside for thermal bridging. We've learned why controlling water matters. We learned air sealing techniques. One of the big things was Jake came over and did a special presentation of doing the blower door testing with the kids. And so they got to learn and see all that effort they put in with continuous caulking, a continuous bead and taping seams, things like that, why it all mattered. And so now it became a game to them, which for kids, I'll tell you, it is not easy to teach kids who think school sucks and they're in building trades because it's the only class they're ever going to use in life. But then I have to explain to them that building trades, you use every class that you take in school: science, math, English, things like that. So them getting to see the science part as having blower door test was them getting proof of how well they did. So our first blower door test we did for our building envelope, we hit a 0.58 at 50 Pascal, which was awesome because I've never built anything using a blower door test. I kind of got into air sealing kind of at the end of my career before teaching, but so this was a big achievement for me. It was a big achievement for the students. This was awesome, and it became a game. So when we talk about teaching younger kids how to get excited about building science, the word science freaks them out because they're taking building trades class to get out of school, right? Like they don't want to be in class. So, oh great, now I have to go take class again, right? Building trades isn't school to them. So, that was cool. And then we showed them how to go around with the thermal imaging gun and find the air leaks with the blower door, pressurizing or depressurizing the house. And that was cool to them because now it's like this hunt and stuff. So, when it comes to educating the kids, you have to spin it around on them. Like the words building science does not excite them. In fact, it probably doesn't excite most builders unless they're just into it, So you have to have ways to, trick them into learning, right? So that worked out really well. The kids who get excited about, they're going to get excited about it anyway. I do have kids that did go into the trades. One of my students has an interview next week with a local electrical union. We're a small rural town, so people that are hiring, it's 3 or 4 man crews like you guys talked about. It's the same problem everywhere. I know my program's unique, just the fact that we actually get to build houses with the kids, and it's probably even more unique that we actually put building science into it. Again, I thank all you guys for all the information and help. Gil Bain, Bob, your company's awesome. One of my good buddies is a senior project manager for you guys here in Illinois. Your company, I know you guys do the outreach program for the schools and stuff. Mm-hmm. They donated gloves, safety glasses, and all our tool belts and things, and also did our safety presentation to the kids. So, having companies that can do that is great. And I understand that's probably going to fall on the shoulders of the big companies because let's face it, the small mom and pop guys that probably make up, I'm going to go on a limb and say 85% or better of the nation's residential construction industry just can't afford to probably do that stuff. They just...
but they can reach out to their suppliers and do it that way too.
Yeah. And okay. Suppliers have been great for me too. Huber Wood, Rockwool, 2 big companies that, and I know people, in those companies pay attention to what's going on here and stuff. That's been great. Steve and Jake using their, network of people to help us out. We got some big things going on for the next build. Once we get this one finished, obviously we would have been done with this current build, but of course COVID's made school in general difficult. But we got kids. We're in a small rural town, so I forget what the percentage of kids we actually send to college, but I want to say like 40%. Like a lot of our kids, and we actually have programs where our kids, most of our seniors and juniors go to either the career area center, career area center, or they can go to a local college, or they come to my class and do the building trades and stuff. So I'm fortunate we have somewhere where it's really pushing the trades. Like we push the trades very heavily. in CTE programs and stuff. So, we're fortunate in that. But at the same time, for kids looking to get jobs, we're battling, and I think you guys kind of touched on it too. You can go bust your butt for, 12 to 15 bucks an hour, which is good pay for a high school kid. Or we can go over to Walmart, work for 12 bucks an hour and got it easy. So it's something in the industry. The kids that want to do it are going to go do it. The kids that are on the fence. I mean, heck, I had kids last year when it finally got cold outside and they didn't like working in the cold. They're like, I think I'm going to go to college, so at the same time, I guess we got to weed them out.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of those college kids may well come back to the trades once they realize that office jobs are not necessarily all that fun either. No, that's great.
Yeah. Well, we have, we have a lot of kids who they know college isn't their thing, and and like I said, for this, especially for you guys in this show and the thing I'm trying to do, I'm still very much a student when it comes to the building sciences side of things, but it's anybody wants to reject it, it's going to be the way. Like codes are catching up, maybe not as fast as everybody would like, obviously, but we have to pay attention to energy and things like that. And then especially if we keep going farther, when we're talking net zero and carbon zero and things like, it's, and those words around here especially are scary. Well, because they sound expensive, and so I think even more the industry problem is it's not even educating the kids as just as much as educating the customer who are the parents of these kids, because I got to battle the whole thing where my dad said, that's not how they did it. Yeah, well, we didn't do a lot of things back, back when I was, I graduated in 99, we did a lot of things differently, so it's, this has all been talked about before and other things, where our industry just is behind on things, like you wouldn't pay in our industry, the customer always wants the best for the less, but yet you won't go buy a piece of crap car and drive around, because it's not safe, not that we don't build not safe houses, but it's like, why wouldn't you still be giving the best for your house, for your family and things? So, there's more problems than just teaching the kids. I think a lot of it also comes with, our customer itself as well. But it does feel good knowing that at least the kids, even if they don't go into industry, at least maybe they'll be better customers when it comes to their houses when they get older.
Yeah. Well, so it seems like we need people like you training the kids, and not necessarily just training the kids who are going to be in the trades, but just sort of training a whole generation as to what to expect, what a good quality building looks like. And then we need people like Kate training builders how to be better business people so they can charge more, because there's literally like there's a huge swing in how much an unsophisticated contractor can charge compared to one who is good at business, and that's Kate's world is showing builders and designers, architects how this is all dependent on the market. So how do we convince clients that their homes are worth paying more for, or commercial clients like Bob's, how a little bit.
Yeah, don't think for a minute that our clients aren't the same way. We still get the how cheap can I get it, even on multi-million-dollar jobs. So it's no better at the other end of the spectrum. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, and I also wanted to ask you, Bob. I know you're involved in Skills USA, but Bill Robinson is on, or was. He yes. is, and he's involved. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Skills USA really is? Is that nationwide? Is it available everywhere? Is it available to every school kid? What's the story?
As far as I know, it's available to every school. It's a matter of whether every school can or will participate in it. For example, state of Georgia, there's 500 and some odd school districts or high schools in the state, and the Carpentry Skills USA competition, there might be, 20 that actually make it into the state level competition. So because not every school has a carpentry program. Some states just don't do it. I mean, when I judged in Louisville a couple of years ago, because Bill runs the what they call a teamworks competition, which is a 4-person team where you have to basically build a small house or portions of a small house. So you've got carpentry, masonry, plumbing, and electrical to do. I think we had 35 participants at the high school level who were the winners of their state competitions, which means there's only 35 states that actually had a teamworks competition out of 50. So yeah, not everybody participates, but they definitely can. But like everything else, it takes support. I mean, somebody's got to buy, all the material for these teams to practice with, and somebody's got to come in and help them learn the skills that they need to learn. I mean, what a lot of the instructors have told me over the years on the teamwork competition is, we teach them the carpentry side of things, but we don't have time to teach them masonry and plumbing and electrical. So they find a local electrician who comes in and gives the guys a crash course on electrical or a crash course on plumbing, just to learn enough. It's a great program without a doubt. You can do that teamworks competition, or you can do, say, just carpentry, just cabinet making. You can have you can do plumbing, electrical. They've got so many categories. I mean, they've got like a nail technician, nail salon technician class. They've got hairdressing, early childhood education. Pretty much any skill you can think of, you can compete in at the local, state, or national level. But again, the teams need support to be able to do it, because the teachers are already, on top of all the stuff they have to do to actually teach, they've got all the paperwork and other stuff that comes along with being a teacher nowadays, which is, you think we have it rough, try finding people to teach some of this stuff in the school district for $40,000 a year and deal with all the stuff that they have to deal with now. Is Matt's shaking his head going, yeah, exactly. So the Skills USA, though, this year is moving, the national competition is moving to Atlanta. And Bill is telling me that right now it's scheduled to be virtual because of the COVID situation. So that's not quite sure how we're going to do that, but it's going to be interesting, and we're going to do the best we can with it.
So that sounds like a great program. I know there, at the college level, there was the solar decathlon. They had very similar problems to that. You still have to have somebody to organize it and do the materials, and that's taking. So if one takeaway that we could have for tonight would be, how do the professionals in the industry get involved in those so we can make some more of that happen would be pretty awesome. So we're getting to our last 10 minutes of the evening. It's been great to have all of you guys. So we usually close out, and Matt, since you're up, we'll let you give your final thoughts tonight too. But I'd love for each of you to sort of weigh in on really any or all the parts of our discussion tonight. Like, what's your final thoughts, takeaways, that we can be doing really as a call to action to help our industry, because we're all really passionate about it, to increase, both interest and training and building science and climate action and all of that. So we'll start in order again. So Naomi, you can be up first.
Okay. I have a couple of immediate things that I'm really excited about doing. One that's so easy, if I can get it together, but I think that Pass Maine should have a for hire page. I'm often forwarding, if I see somebody who I like who's hiring, I'm like, work for these guys, but it's kind of unorganized. And I think that's an easy lift for Pass Maine to do. I also am, I'm always thinking about that state money and what we might do with it when it ever comes. But just tonight, I was like, all right, let's have that state money make an ad campaign, make trades cool again, whatever, something like that. And that should be incorporated into whatever training we have or whatever other money that goes into it. That selling the profession should be part of it.
Great, thank you. That means Kate, you're up.
Okay, I guess I would just leave you with the thought of when you're ready to make your next hire, think about how to get that ad out in front of different folks than you would normally. Posting it in different places, reaching out to the local trade school, reaching out to women tradeswomen organizations, posting the compensation in your job ad is really important. And also, having some kind of statement that says you're welcoming a diverse candidate pool. So think about what those job ads look like and how to get them out there.
Okay, Bob.
I would say that the key to all of this is to not wait for someone else to do it. If you need people, you need to go out and find them yourself. And the way to do that is by hooking up with your local MAT. It might not be your local high school, but maybe it's the next county over, or 2 county overs, whatever. Because Naomi mentioned that the state doing it or the Fed doing it. Georgia started a program called Go Build Georgia about 5 years ago. They got some token amount of money from the governor. They talk about it every year at Skills USA and how we got this big program. We're going to promote construction trades. It's done very little to nothing to actually solve this issue. So if you're waiting for the state or you're waiting for the Fed to do it, you're going to be sitting around waiting for a long time. I say, do it locally. Go find Matt or your Matt and volunteer, whether it's teaching hands-on or it's going in there and talking to them about building science, show them how to wrap a window, show them how to, properly seal around penetrations, whatever, just to give them that little leg up over what they're getting in the classroom already.
Great. Heather?
Thank you for having me on. This was fun. I think that creating a company that supports and appreciates the people that work in it and putting that out there is the way to attract people that are going to be good to work with and smart and skilled. And I think trying to hire people for their brains over their experience can work. It's hard. It's hard to find people.
Yeah. Matt?
Hey, thanks for having me pop in, I guess. Being surprised by it being a surprise guest. I'm going to jump off what Bob said, man. You just got to do it, like permission or no permission, whatever. The school came to me and said, hey, Matt, we're starting to build a house building program back up. You got to build a house. I said, okay. And then I went to the board meeting and I said, this is what we're doing. I didn't ask questions. I didn't ask about budgets. I just said, this is what I'm implementing. This is what we're going to do. And we did it. But yes, as far as getting to the kids, you're going to have to reach out to those schools. You're going to have to show up regularly. It's not, you can't just show up once and done, because then you just forget, just like any of us, once it out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And it doesn't mean giving a lot of money and stuff necessarily. In fact, most of my help from all you guys has been just pure knowledge, information, things like that. So keep doing that for sure. And, when we talk, and I tried my best to talk about money with the kids, because that's all they care about. When you're a broke teenager, all you care about is money. So, showing what they can actually make, things like that, that is huge. Getting that out there, making the trades fun, sexy, exciting, whatever. Instagram's doing a great job of that. So that's helping. But at the high school level, it's a little bit tougher. The high schooler mind is about this far forward thinking. Beyond that, it's tough, thinking about the future and stuff. So I'd say keep educating, keep helping out those teachers, those programs, helping convince schools, districts that it can be done. Talk to the bigger companies like Gilbane. So there's small guys need to talk to the big guys, while the big guys are reaching out to the little guys. Work together, use the power together. And it's got to be a community thing. That's probably going to be, numbers are going to win.
Great. Mike?
Yeah. So back in the spring, although I stutter and hate speaking in public, I was asked to come talk to my local high school, which happens to be the high school I graduated from. when the topic they wanted me to speak on was embodied carbon and climate change, but I'm thinking that there's enough information out there on that I think maybe just showing what people like I do and Emily does and Heather does, these fun, interesting, challenging houses, and how we're actually using all the stuff you learn in school. Like I use algebra and trigonometry, well, at least algebra pretty much every day, and writing, but then just that we get to put together these cool houses and work on beautiful sites, and just I think putting together a little bit of a traveling road show would convince a few kids that maybe that's a viable path. And then it's also sort of like, or like Matt is even the kids that don't go into the trades, it gives them a new respect for what is involved, and then they turn into good homeowners in 25 years. So that's my plan.
Yeah. Thanks for all of you for,
How about you,
for
Emily? You
joining.
didn't go.
Yeah, I've worked with a couple of actual high school and college trade programs in different ways. And I think one of the biggest things was getting people who are in related but not the same trades interested in it, and that it's a disservice across the board for every high school not to have a construction program, at least even if they're not building a whole house, just the hands-on skills, because those people who Matt said were like, oh, it's cold, I don't want to work out here and go to college, have something after college, because how many people finish college with a degree and then have no idea what to get into with a degree?
Everyone.
So yeah. And so, from doing the podcast and talking to other people who have gotten into the industry after college, I had an architecture student actually at one of my classes say, what's the best thing that I can do, to learn more? And I said, go work for a contractor for the summer. And then the contractor said to me, I tried so hard to convince him to stay, but I think that there's an interest level there that we're missing. And so I always love to, anybody who asks me about going to architecture school, I always say, go work for a contractor first, go work for the summer, learn some of those things, building science, do energy auditing. Here's the part where I'm hard on the profession of architecture. I learned more, not during my apprenticeship years as an architect under another architect, but once I started doing building auditing. So I learned a whole lot more about doing building auditing. So there are so many ways to get interested in it. And I think it's simply a matter of those of us who are in the industry going out and putting it out there. Someone said there's a women in construction maybe group in Maine. There's a bigger women in construction group called Move Over Bob, who tries to highlight women in the industry. And I know that's not, there's clearly so much more diversity to that, but starting to get other women interested in just saying, hey, we're out here, call us, we can mentor with you, and getting into places.
I'm offended by that title, though. Emily.
I know, and it is not meant to be. It was. It actually started with a whole Twitter tweet.
At me.
It was not directed at you, and it doesn't mean that that we're taking over the construction industry. It means make room for us at the table. Is the slogan with that one. So maybe it should be like slide over. Make room for me at the table. I don't know. It actually was a joke that turned into a big movement, which was pretty cool. So. Thank you again for everybody getting on here. Obviously, this is a hot topic in our field because, how do we get people interested and trained and moving? So, because during COVID, one thing that didn't go down, it seems, is construction. We are an essential service. So,
yeah. Thank you guys so much for having Pass Maine on and facilitating this awesome conversation. It was great.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks for joining us. See y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.